world events unravelling, and many of us once again rethinking how we can reapproach our new normal. Today, we'll be diving into things you should know about our changed new world. I'm Colin, Managing Director of EMEA, and you're listening to Oktopost's original discussion series. Ladies and gentlemen, it's podcast time again. It's welcome to this original podcast series from Oktopost, stuff you should know about our changed world. Today, my guest is a good friend of mine, Matt Zilli, the Chief Executive Officer at Clarizen. Matt, welcome to the conversation.
Thanks, Colin. Good to be here.
No problem. Look, Matt, before joining Clarizen, you led field and go-to-market teams at Marketo, which Adobe, we all know, acquired back in 2018. Before that, though, you've had a wide-ranging career that's gone across sales, marketing, customer success. I mean, we actually met through that customer success role of yours over at Marketo many years back, right? Matt, you were at Marketo for 7 years, so you've seen a heck of a lot of change, right? A heck of a lot of change in the industry, a heck of a lot of change in that organization as you readied it for that ultimate liquidity event. What lessons have you learned? Over that time, and I'm sure you've learned a heck of a lot, but what lessons have you learned over that time in order to live and manage through change?
Yeah, that's it feels particularly relevant right now. Maybe I'll start at the end and then go back a couple of years, but it's been an amazing couple of months for me to take on a new role and join a new company where I can almost literally see the office from my window of my house, and yet can't go into it and can't meet the people and can't get to know folks in across our global team in the way that I certainly would have liked. And so at the very beginning, I've had to completely change my way of thinking about how to engage with a team, because the difference of what happened when I was thinking of joining the company to when I actually joined the company was fundamental. All the plans I had for traveling and visiting our global locations and seeing people in person and looking them eye to eye and all the important things for me to make a connection to a team I'm going to be working with for some time went right out the window. And so, the number one thing to me is, if you're not open to ideas and thinking, especially in a time in a situation like this where everybody is learning on just an incredibly rapid clip, because nobody has faced this. At the very least, the intersection of SaaS technology and pandemic has never happened before. Yes, right. There have been pandemics, but never both at the same time. And so just the open-mindedness of people has been a headline for me, because if I came into this thinking I had any answers about joining a company in the middle of a pandemic and getting to know folks and understanding the team and where we're going to go strategically and all of that, the approach I would have taken 3 months ago is out the window. And so I have to, make sure that I'm here to learn and try and figure it out and take advice from people I trust faster, more than ever before, I'd say. And then take that back a couple of years and we were at Marketo. Just this, when I kind of capstone my time there, I think a lot about SaaS was, still a relatively new thing, this idea of software as a service, and everything that meant for how we had to treat customers and potential customers differently was this snowball that just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, because we all know logically that in a subscription world, your success as a company comes down to your ability to service customers. That is absolutely the headline. But acting on that and the bar that keeps raising to do that effectively, when there are now thousands of customers trying to do that better and better than the other companies in their market, because that is what's paramount. I will say that is probably the biggest change from when I joined the working world 20 years ago. And
don't look old enough, my friend. You don't look old enough.
Well, I grow the beard to make myself look older.
Right. It's like, look, you and I met. We're not going to talk about the customer experience on why you and I met, right? And I'm not talking about the Vegas experience. I'm talking about the one before that, right? But back then, everyone thought that Steve was the CEO, right? It's like Steve Lucas. Really, it was you, right? Because you were the customer experience officer, really, right? It's like you were the CEO. Because look, the thing I know about you, Matt, right, is you put the customer at the heart of everything you do. Yeah, and I think that's how you've built, certainly to the external world. To me, that's how you've built your brand, right? Is you understand that nothing happens without the customer, yeah, and therefore you better damn well get that experience right. Otherwise, you haven't got a business to come back to. Yeah.
Right.
So if we think about Clarizen itself, right? It's like some of our listeners might not know who or what Clarizen actually is. So like, can you give us the elevator pitch?
Yeah, I'll give you the quick 30-second. Clarizen is an enterprise platform for helping companies manage their work. So everything from agile project management to waterfall projects to resource management to budget management. It is the system of record for enterprises to get work done. And so it's been Clarizen's got a fascinating story. It's been around as a pure SaaS company for longer than most pure SaaS companies, certainly, went through a time where it was servicing all customers, small and large, and everybody in between, and has certainly refined the focus over time, and it's been an interesting journey to look back on because it's a case study in how to really service customers effectively, to meet the needs of customers, you have to be focused. It is nearly impossible without unlimited funding and unlimited resources to effectively service all different customers from all different sizes and all different geographies and all different walks of life. But back in the late 2000 aughts, it was that was the SaaS methodology. Was you raise a lot of money, you burn the cash trying to grow as quickly as possible, and you try and bite off the largest chunk of market you possibly could. And it took, I think, the second generation of SaaS to realize that was probably not the best approach. And so now I think you see a lot more value in companies where there's focus, and that's the journey that Clarizen's been on. Whereas now, we're very refined in who our ideal customers are and how we work with them, so that we can go into those opportunities knowing that we're going to meet the bar for success. We're going to meet the bar where success is customers are happy. There's a clear business value in working with Clarizen. It's a partnership where we can hold each other accountable for what we're committing to on both sides. And that level of focus is certainly what's helped Clarizen become successful in recent years. And as I was looking in from the outside in before I joined, it just was a shining example to me of how lack of focus can hurt companies in more ways than one. But one is certainly it can hurt companies in how they are able to service their customers. If you try and go too broad, you'll just fail everybody.
So, from a Clarizen perspective, as a platform, so like, where does it fit into, and does it fit into the sales technology stack, the marketing technology stack, or is it really something that runs outside of that? It's not part of that ecosystem. How would you view it?
Yeah, it's a great part about being a platform is that we find that we intersect and integrate with various use cases and other applications that vary pretty wildly by customer. It goes back to our ability, certainly comes back to how we make sure we focus so that we can service those well. But I know I'll speak to my personal use case because it's the one I know best at this point. We do use Clarizen to manage all of our customer relationships internally. And so to do that effectively, we have to connect to all of our other internal systems, things like Salesforce and so on. And in so doing, we become the hub for a number of processes and projects that we're running. Or another great example, our professional services team. Certainly in the go-to-market arena, many companies use Clarizen to manage all of their professional services engagements with customers. And right there is a great example where the reason that our customers choose Clarizen, and this is one of my early learnings, so I still get excited about it, is just that we, in the modern world, it's not that a vendor manages a product or a project to engage with a customer. That management has to kind of span the vendor and the customer. And so platforms like Clarizen these days allow, in my case, my PS team doesn't just run and manage the projects they're doing on behalf of our customers. They're actually using the platform to engage directly with customers, so that when we're waiting for help on the customer side to get something done, or we're making them aware of something else we're working on, all of that happens in a way that spans vendor and customer, because we're kind of coming closer together in this. And so, just one example where, modern working world, far different from what it used to be, where vendor would do some waterfall project and then kind of update results to the customer, and hopefully you're giving them enough updates that they're happy and informed and so on. That's just out the window. Our goal is that our customers use Clarizen to engage directly with their customers constantly. It's just this constant stream of engagement.
Gotcha. So Matt, bringing it back to your roles, like you joined what was it, April the 6th. So new CEO. What's the focus of a new CEO? So like as you're coming into the organization, I know this one's a little bit strange because of timing's everything, right? But what's been your focus? What's been the focus for the first 60 days?
Yeah,
because I know how I could answer that as a CMO, but I've never sat in the CEO's chair, right?
Yeah. I will say, I think the first job for any CEO in the first 30 days in general, particularly during a time of dramatic economic change, is the faster you can have a deep understanding of your financial position and financial levers for the company is key. And that should be no surprise. It's certainly not the most exciting thing to talk about, but I'll say, as I talk to my peer group and all the CEOs, doesn't matter whether you're small or large or public or private or private equity backed or venture backed, everybody is asking the same question that they just didn't have to ask for the last number of years, which is how much longer, if the world completely changes, if certain sectors of the market just completely stop buying software, in our case, if the economy is disrupted for 12 or 18 or 24 months, how does that impact our business? What do we need to prepare for? And so, it's not certainly what I was thinking was going to be top of mind, as I spent, my first 3 or 4 months of the year talking to different companies and helping them think about growth plans and where we're going to invest for innovation and how we're going to service customers and all the things that my brain tends to go to naturally. That's been there, but it's also been with this parallel set of questions that everybody has to ask. And, nobody knows what the economy is going to do. So it's all in how sensitive your business is to swings in certain areas. And so, you kind of get through that and you understand and you get to a point of stability. And then for me, I was able, in a pretty lucky position. We have this just incredible global team, and being a software company, the transition to working from home is normal. Like it wasn't, it was pretty, it didn't disrupt our business. We didn't have to worry about hardware supply chains or food or people that, are shipping goods or anything that requires in-person work. So admittedly, we get through kind of those assessments and understanding pretty quickly. Then we can get back to growth. And for us, I had the opportunity to spend a lot of our time with our team and with our customers. And so for me, for the first 30, 60 days, what I spent a lot of time thinking about is, how do we make sure, I certainly come in with a different perspective. How do we make sure that we're doing everything at that intersection of Clarizen, the company, and our customers to have partnership with those customers, to service our customers well, certainly, but to also make sure that we have a shared view of where we're going and understanding and collecting a lot of feedback there. So, my number one goal, my favorite goal, is just meeting with a ridiculously high number of customers in the first 2 months, because I learn more from those conversations than I will ever learn from my internal conversations, and that's been great and educational for me. And by the way, I'll
But there
say,
you are, putting the customer at the heart of it again, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's, maybe it's DNA. Like couldn't
that's
stop
what I keep
myself.
saying, right? That's what I keep saying. So Matt, across your career, right, you've run sales, marketing, and customer success teams, but now you're sitting in the top chair as the CEO. What are your expectations of those sales and marketing functions that you were once neck deep in, right? It's like sleeves rolled up and doing the job. What's your expectations of them now? Because I guess you're in quite a I'd say privileged or dangerous, depends upon which way you're looking at it, right? It's like because you've done the job, so you've got an expectation in your mind of how long it takes to do things, like what's right and what's wrong. It's like so what's your expectation of a modern day marketing and sales function?
Yeah. The number one, I'll actually have a good example of this that's probably a little too tactical, but it's become my favorite story over the last 2 weeks. So bear with me. I'll let you edit it out if it's no good, but it'll set the stage for my expectations. And it's short. As you join a new company, I think I triggered every LinkedIn alert in the world and started getting emails from every vendor out there that wants to sell to the new CEO of Clarizen.
I'm blushing.
And so on.
I'm blushing.
Yeah. No. This is friendship. I'm talking about the people I've never talked to before. And so I get one of those emails from a company I have worked with before, and it is a cold reach out. And I will not name the company as much as I would like to, because I think everybody can improve from stories like this. But I get this email that is a cold reach out that is the 2-paragraph dialogue on how their company can help Clarizen and all these bullets on why they're the best. And I will say it happens to be a company that I have a particularly positive view of because I have worked with this company before. And it was no secret that I had worked with this company before. Yet in this email, it was the classic, they referenced nothing about my background. They referenced nothing about the work we had done together. It was without question either the next email in the cadence or somebody just kind of drafted their normal email and sent it to me and said, here's all the reasons why this company is great and you should buy from us. And I read this thinking, if you had sent me an email that said, we've worked together in the past, would love to connect and see what's up, I would have been about 1,000 times more likely to respond. And instead, I am now on a podcast telling a story about how awful and impersonal.
But you didn't say their name, Matt. You didn't say their names were changed to protect the innocent, right?
That is very true. Yes, exactly.
So
right.
I think what you're saying there, right, is personalization and relevance as 2 words.
Exactly where I'm going. It is the intersection of sales and marketing these days, especially if you're working with larger companies, where you can find out what a company's goals are, what they're trying to achieve. Everything comes down to understanding the person who you're trying to engage with and their business situation at the time. And with those 2 inputs, you can be helpful and personal and an advisor to the company. And that is the bar that I hold my teams to, knowing that there is always a scale game here. We always have to figure out how we're reaching as many people and the right people. And that's, it can be a pretty significant exercise. But
that's where technology comes into it though, Matt, right?
Without question, it has to. And that's the difference between now and 20 years ago. When I started in this was like, to me, I'm too logical. Well, there's this group of customers, we want to reach them, let's go understand what they need and go sell to them. And that used to be like hand-to-hand combat for any salesperson. Now, thanks to technology, we can scale that almost ad infinitum. And but at the same time, if we scale it too much, we lose the personality and the personalization and the relevance. And that's where my bar is. I keep. Are you seeing
social selling being more of a an important factor inside the your organization, Matt? Is that something that you guys are focused on?
I to the point where it's just selling as far as I'm concerned. It is the way that things are done these days, and the bar, the mark of success or not lack of success is we have all this information at our fingertips. We understand what people care about. They put themselves out there. We understand what their companies care about. Their companies put themselves out there. We have these direct connections that we never had before. And so you bring all of this together, and social selling to me is just personalized selling. It goes back to understanding the person and understanding the company, and so it's a core focus for us, to make sure that we are always doing everything we can to just be as relevant and useful and helpful to potential customers as possible.
Gotcha. Matt, look, I once heard you say that, market what you believe, not what you do, right? So market what you believe, not what you do, right? Remember that saying?
I do.
Yeah,
I
cool.
do. I've never had my words used against me. You haven't used it against me yet, but I'm worried. You've got a look in your eye like you're going to use it
No,
against me.
never. Look, with this tan going on, Matt, I could never look anyone straight in the eye ever again. But market what you believe, not what you do. How do you go about impacting cultural change in a company? Because that's really what you're talking about there, right? Is you're really talking about getting to your sellers, getting to your marketers, right, and getting them to drink from the corporate Kool-Aid, right? And I always say, if you don't believe in the product, yeah, you're in the wrong job, because it comes across, right, in every conversation that you have with a client and a prospect. So what's your words of advice about how you take that mantra and how you go about inflecting change, or inflicting change with inside a company? And
Yeah.
when I say change, I mean cultural change, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Cultural change is an interesting one, because I think, as I've seen across my career, every company has a different approach and understanding of what culture even means. To me, it comes down to a lot about kind of some old cliches, but how you act when nobody else is in the room or nobody else is listening, and how are decisions made in an organization. I think those things have a big impact on culture. But yeah, I realized long ago, every organization is different in how they even do they even quantify and write down what their culture is or not, and is it, it's always there, but do your own teams understand what that culture is or not? And so I think a big part of it comes to realizing culture is like the biggest, broadest term that exists out there, and knowing that not everybody even has a shared definition of what culture means is can be kind of eye-opening. And I'll personal experience recently in joining Clarizen, I actually came into the situation where there's an incredibly strong culture, and a culture, by the way, that has been anchored in servicing customers. So inherent alignment there, which for me has been interesting, to get to your question around that I'm certainly not going to come in and advise that we should not continue to do everything we can in service of our customers. So but that doesn't mean that everything is perfect, and that we don't need to change certain aspects of our culture. So for me, it came down to, really being intentional about some of the things that we do need to change, and how we need to think about those things, and focusing on core areas, which in my case happens to be the 10 to 15% of the culture that we want to evolve a little bit, versus radical change management from where we used to be. And so I think there's a lot of value there, and just you have to have a deep understanding first of what culture is. If you come in with your this is what the culture should be, you get thrown out on your ear, because culture is like a snowball. It just gets bigger and bigger and bigger as it rolls down the hill. You can't change culture overnight. It takes change in what you say, what you do, who you hire, who you fire. All of that kind of comes into it. And so you have to, I think, be open to understanding what the culture is first, and then you can focus on the right things that need change. And if that's a lot of change in a high degree, it tends to lead to a lot more hirings and firings, because culture is made up of people, and you have to manage
Yep.
that. But in other cases, when it's less than that, you can really manage it with focus goals, focus areas in a couple of different things.
Cool. Thank you, Matt. Matt, look, you said I've got a glint in my eye. I certainly have got a glint in my eye with the next question, right? You told me that I should treat this as a video interview, right? And it's not me interviewing for the job, and it's not you interviewing for the job. But what's the one interesting thing, or give me one interesting thing that's not on your CV?
Oh, interesting. If it's not on my CV,
Could be professional. It could be
professional.
personal, Matt. It doesn't matter, right? Give us one interesting thing for the audience that's not on Matt Zilli's on Matt Zilli's CV or resume, as you would call it over in America.
Yes, we'll Americanize it so I can understand the question.
There you go. You're thinking about that far too long, my friend, as well.
No, yeah, well, it's yeah. I think. Man, there's maybe I'm fear that there's not that much that's interesting. Is these days, honestly, my world is consumed outside of my resume with trying to keep a 5 and a 2-year-old entertained when they're not in school. But that's not anything different that people aren't dealing with. So I think probably the most interesting thing that's not on my resume is when I was in college, I decided to become a private pilot. And had dreams for years of I was actually going to go to try and go to the Air Force Academy in the States and enlist or not enlist, but go through the path of becoming a pilot for the Air Force. And that ended up not happening, but I still had the bug. And so as you can see by the picture behind me, my house is kind of surrounded with aviation related stuff after I got my pilot's license. Continue with that for a long time, and it's been an important part of my life that if I quit tomorrow, if I ever wanted to go find another career, instantly I would go down the path of becoming a professional pilot.
So Matt Zilli, you're telling me that you're the guy, right? You're the guy that we all need to travel with, because if ever that shout goes out, is there anyone that's a pilot on the aeroplane? You normally get the doctor, but let's go for pilot, right? Matt Zilli's there to save the day. Matt, have you ever flown that plane behind you, by the way?
I've not ever flown. No, that's the China Clipper. A little bit before my time. So no, I've not flown that plane in particular. Although that plane, the original story on that plane is when it took off first from Oakland here in the Bay Area, on its maiden voyage. I think it was his maiden voyage to fly to Hawaii and the Pacific Islands, Guam, and so on. It didn't get high enough, fast enough to get over the Bay Bridge. And so on its first flight with passengers, it flew under the Bay Bridge in the Bay Area, which is,
scary.
A slightly nerve-wracking approach.
Yeah, scary. Hey, Matt Zilli, our time has come to an end. So, my friend, let's wrap it up. But ladies and gentlemen, Matt Zilli, CEO, Clarizen, thank you so much for joining the conversation, Matt.
Thanks for having me, Colin.